And so just finding your place, getting your body and mind oriented around this thing we call meditation. Whatever adjustments you need, yeah. And I really want to encourage you, to just be as comfortable as you can. Be relatively upright. That's a good idea. It helps keep the mind aware and awake. But relaxation is a really important part of meditation. And so if you need to adjust, do that. Be as comfortable as you can be. And use this awareness that I'm suggesting of feeling your body as a way of coming home. Call back all the pieces of you that may have been scattered throughout the day or even the week. Just call yourself home to this moment in this body. And let whatever calls your attention, let it call your attention. It may be sensation. Could be the sensation that comes with thinking. There is a sensation that comes with thinking. If you're thinking, notice what that feels like. Other senses might be engaged. Hearing, you're hearing my voice. There may be other sounds further away, you notice. All of this and more is what makes up this moment, right here, right now. And in this field, you may already have noticed breathing happening. If you haven't, you could gently bring your attention there. No need to change anything. Just breathing happening all by itself. And you letting your awareness rest in those sensations. If you notice you're drifting, know that's part of the nature of the mind to drift. And you can bring your awareness right back here anytime you want. Now I'm going to suggest that you allow the breathing to come in and out of your heart center. There's a little visualization in that. Just imagining your in-breath coming in through your heart center. And the out-breath flowing out of your heart center. If it feels helpful to put a hand on your heart center, you can do that, but it's not necessary. Only if it feels helpful to bring your attention there. And you can play with adding some words here. When you breathe in, you think to yourself, may I be happy. And when you breathe out, thinking, may you be happy. This to us here in this room. I'm playing with the form a little bit here. On the in-breath, may I be happy. And on the out-breath, may you be happy. In and out through the heart center. Drawing in everyone's wishes for happiness here in the room. And sending that back out on the out breath. May I be peaceful. May you be peaceful. May I know ease, and may you know ease. May I be safe, and may you be safe. Now I'm going to suggest that you bring someone into the room here. Imagine them maybe sitting in the center of the room. Someone that you know is suffering. And just let them be the center of all of our good wishes here in this room. We can bathe 7 people, only one of whom we know, in the center of this room with our good wishes flowing from our heart center. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be at ease. May you be safe. Really, in your imagining, see that this is making a difference. See this person relaxing. Their suffering dropping away. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be at ease. May you know safety. And then let that visualization dissolve however it does. Maybe you imagine them going to some safe place. And just bring your attention back into the room. Notice whatever you feel here in this room as we've been practicing together. All of us breathing through our heart center. And I encourage you, as I ask you to come back into the room with your eyes open, if they've been closed, to not just let this drop. This is not a sharp demarcation. You can allow this sense of breathing in and out through your heart center to continue maybe in the back of your awareness. And find your way back, however you do. And so we just let this land however it lands. Notice if you have any questions that come up, if you feel like you want to make notes of them, or don't worry about that. You can just let it drift through and understand what you understand, and know that you can always come back to the recording if there's some piece that you want to remember.
Will there be time for questions after you talk?
And there'll be time for questions afterwards. So I want to just name that there's something in, sometimes in Buddhism it's called the natural state, which is the resting in awareness. It is being, right? And in my experience, there's two ways to access that. One way is I think of as in, and we may do more of that in future sessions here, but this sort of sense that you are aware of objects and then you become aware of what it is that's sensing the objects, awareness itself. And that's a kind of a resting back and in way to access that natural state. But there's another way, which is actually, I think of as out. And it's really moving into this reality that we are all interconnected, that we're not separate, right? And we can sense that from just that awareness where everything, just the display is seen as being an amazing display, right? But if we also move out, we can get that almost not almost, truly a more access to a tactile sense of interdependence. And, we're born in this world in a sense of oneness if things go well, right? In our mother's womb, all our needs are taken care of if things go well. At some point I will talk more about attachment, but that's not where I'm going today. And then we're born, and there's that sense of separation that can come in. And without getting on a soapbox and talking too much about this culture, that sense of separation really gets reified. It really gets emphasized in our culture. You're separate from me, right? And some of that is this amazing part of our brain that comes online, the prefrontal cortex, that is very undeveloped when we're born, but fully develops, they say, at age 26, right? But the job of this is to cut things into pieces and identify this is different than this, and you are different than me. And if there's wounding that does happen in our culture, I'll say, if there's wounding in that, then that sense of separation that may, be affected by trauma, right? If there's trauma that comes up that causes our nervous systems to contract and push away, then that sense of separation, as well as all of the information we get of the training that we get of being separate and that's the only thing that's true. We get caught in this belief, right, that we're separate. And that's a lot of what Buddhism and many spiritual paths start to push back against, of we can question that, right? There is a way of experiencing this world where we're not separate, right? And science tends to highlight that, right? Newtonian science does more of that kind of separation. Quantum physics starts to question it a little bit, right? But usually it's also through the intellect. That experience of being connected it's something that I think that draws a lot of us, I think, to spirituality, right? And to meditation. Whether meditation is something you're doing for spiritual reasons or not, but I do think that it's something that it happens when our nervous system's calm. We feel more connected. Joseph Goldstein is a Western Buddhist teacher, Vipassana teacher, and I heard him say once that with absolute delight, he's so fun to be with. I heard him say once that he had this realization that all of the Buddhist teachings that are presented as practices, metta being one of them, loving kindness, right? But also just the lists, is it the ninefold path? I don't even remember it, but there's so many. Eightfold path, all of these things that get taught within the
Four Noble Truths.
The Four Noble Truths. They're good. My husband, I count on you to hold these things.
Track the numbers.
Because that's the prefrontal cortex, right? It's like there's this, and we're gonna identify what the stages are, and that's important because this is a part of our brain, right? We take in information like that, right? But what Joseph said was that he realized with delight at a certain point that what was presented as practices and as something we had to identify and that would lead to happiness if we could understand these things, they were not just practices, they are also a description of what's true when we're in the natural state. And so we can kind of access that through information and learning the lists, right? And then that can come together when all of a sudden the picture comes together in our minds and we go, oh, that's what that means, right? But it's also when you can drop into that natural state, it just becomes evident. The Buddha was just describing what's true. And he described it as a set of practices, right? But it's a description of what's true. So I like to, anyone who's maybe looked into Joanna Macy's work at all, the deep ecology, this will probably sound a bit familiar, but the fact is, right, we tend to experience like air is nothing, right? And if air is sort of nothing, that means you're separate because you're over there and you're over there and you're over there. And I'm over here, and that means we're separate, right? I mean, there's just something about that intuitively that kind of makes sense. But air is not empty. Air is a thing. Air can be measured. It is certainly less dense than this, right? But I think it's more accurate to describe what we do in air as swimming rather than being in some empty something, right? That I'm a thing and it's not, right? And so for me, that can be really valuable if I can kind of get that online in my experiential body, that I'm like a cell. You're a cell. And there's all these other cells, even in the air, that maybe we can't see, right? And if I imagine myself as like a lung cell in this body, I am a really valuable part that makes this body work, right? And I have a boundary if I'm a lung cell, right? Cells don't work well if their boundaries get blown out, right? We want the cells to have a good, strong boundary, and we want it to be able to take in and leave what it needs to, whether that's oxygen, right? As a lung cell, I have a job to help translate oxygen, which is this thing, air, right? So that this body can stay animate, right? So that this body can be alive with this strange, ineffable thing that we call awareness, right? And so then we get into the macro micro aspect of this, that we have these little cells and the body works, but I'm a cell and you're a cell in something much larger. And we're just as interconnected as like my lung cell is to my muscle cell in my leg, right? Now, they're not right next to each other, but they have a job to do. You have a job to do here in this world, right? You have a job to do. I have something that I do here, right? And in this culture, we get this idea that either we don't have a job to do, that we are unwelcome in this world. We get this self-belief that there's something wrong with me often. Or maybe there's something wrong with you and you shouldn't be here and you shouldn't be, like we see this playing out in the world, right? And it's a mistake. It's just a mistake. So we can actually start to experience this world differently as being vastly interconnected and everything having its own job to do. And that when things don't go well, when we forget that, when we're too lost in feeling separate, we see how things kind of break down in the world, right? Whether you want to think of that as environmentally, whether we want to think of that as socially, right? It's this emphasis on separation that has really caused a lot of suffering. To use more Buddhist language, causes a lot of suffering, right? And so some of the work, for me at least, is to let my prefrontal cortex do what it does, which is be functional. Remind me to pay my bills and brush my teeth and, remember to lock the door because we do live in this culture. Feed the dog, feed myself, go out and get food if I need it, right? Those things are often like a really practical thing that gets driven by this part of us that feels separate, right? It's like, oh, this part has a job to do. And it should do that. It's just a part of the whole. It's just not the whole of the whole. And that we can not go too far into that, just far enough so that things work well, right? And the rest of it can also just be this sensing that we're actually connected, right? So we're both separate and connected. And that all, to me, brings in this feeling of we can investigate in a more holistic way what is our responsibility, meaning our ability to respond to what's actually true, right? It's not responsibility like, oh, I have this burden, right? It doesn't have to be. It's actually the ability to respond to what we're here doing, right? Who we're here to be. And for some of us, that may be something quite large and visible to the whole world. For most of us, how many of us are there now? 8 billion, 9 billion, we're getting up there. Most of us, that's going to be pretty quiet in the background, doing our little lung cell, muscle cell, letting our little area of the world work the way it works. And to me, that's really empowering to just go, oh, here's my sphere, right? And I'm questioning myself as this thought comes to my mind. I was going to say, I can trust that everyone else is going to do their sphere, right? And if some of the cells are cancerous, then there are parts of the body that are also responsible for trying to take care of that. Change it, encapsulate it, make sure the rest of the body is safe, right? So that's getting into a whole arena I'm not going to dive into more, but you get the idea. But the other thing that I want to say is, and some of this is just kind of pushing back on our cultural conditioning, that there's a lot of what we're taught in this culture that says you shouldn't have needs. Like, it's wrong to be needy. Needy is even the word, like, you kind of hear a little cringe in that. It's like, ooh, somebody's needy, or I can't be needy, right? And it's actually in the Sufi tradition where I learned this, that we are so needy. We have deep needs, right? I guarantee you, if the atmosphere was ripped off of this world, we would all die very quickly. We need this air that we think of as nothing, unless we think of it scientifically, right? No, we need this air. We need water. We need food. We need all of the people who grow our food and get it to us. We have such deep needs, and we need each other. And that's really on a very real level. And again, I'm going to talk more about attachment at another time. But, attachment, the science of attachment really shows that as human beings, we need each other, right? Or something goes very wrong. I mean, loneliness, right? There's been a lot of research done on the suffering that comes with loneliness. And so we need other humans. We need our animals. We need all those things that are just like, I see the two of you holding hands. It's like, yes, yes. We need to be aware of and honor the interconnectivity that just is. It's a part of the reality. So we can get more vast. Sometimes I think of it as like, and this earth is one cell in something vast and interconnected in this universe, right? It's yummy for me anyway. I hope it's yummy for you, but it also, to me, it feels important to honor. And through practice, right? Through even just mindfulness practice, mindfulness on the breath, when consciousness gets quiet. It's one doorway through. It's why the Buddha taught it. It's one doorway through where all of that can just reveal itself on an experiential level, right? And it takes getting some quietness, right? But also in that just awareness of feeling the ripple out. It's another way of it being really tactile and juicy. So I think that's what I wanted to say today. And hopefully there'll be some ripples here. And I'm going to turn off the recording now. May any benefit we have received from this practice today be dedicated to all the sentient beings and all the realms and all the times, all the non-sentient beings upon which we also depend. May all beings know their interconnected nature, and interdependence is real.